It would be powered by home generation, either windmills or kerosene in the back shed, and it would recharge anywhere in the urban or exurban environment by means of what they called electrans. Can I see a copy of the book again? Here's a copy of the 1911 General Electric Electrant that looked like a parking meter. You went shopping, you plugged your car in, you got recharged. Pardon me for using the infrastructure word. The cars would be parked overnight in parking garages and barns that would all have an electrical connection, and they would take the off-peak electricity and charge the cars. They would be ready in the next morning. And this really bothered the forces of internal combustion. And Henry Ford, who was a perfectionist, would build his batteries in West Orange, New Jersey, and they were working perfectly. And he shipped them to Dearborn, Michigan, and by the time they got there and were installed, they didn't work. He would fix the problem, he would send new ones. The testing showed that they were faulty. Sometimes they were even placed inside out and upside down. And eventually Henry Ford said, someone is rigging the testing. They're all going out right, and they're being installed, and they don't work. Eventually, Henry Ford in 1914, which is shortly after this was about to be unveiled, said he would build a tamper-proof battery that could not be subverted or undermined. Shortly after that, it was one night, his entire premises, his compound, was burned to the ground. All his structures were fireproof. They had fire alarms. He had his own on-premises fire brigade. It was a mysterious fire. No one knew what it was. He was at the end of his career and says, I've lost everything. And ironically, some of the chemical stockpiles were left alone, but the fire went from building to building and subsumed all that he had started. Then came World War I, and World War I saw the weaponization of the automobile with machine gun units, with tanks, and with other forms of destructive forces. And that was who killed the electric car. But that's not the end of the story. That was for individual transportation. What about mass transportation? In the first few decades of the 20th century, every city had an electric trolley. People loved their trolleys. Before World War I, in fact, smack dab in the middle of World War I, and after that, there were as many as 14 billion boardings in a given year. People loved them. They were open air. They could go from here to there. They made songs about the trolleys. Meet me in St. Louis. There were always people who wanted to go from the East Coast to the West Coast just on nothing but trolleys. But in 1936, as part of FDR's effort to recover America, they passed a piece of emergency anti-corruption legislation, aptly called PUCA, the Public Utility Holding Company Act. Now, who owned all these public transportation systems? The utilities, the electric utilities. They owned them and they operated it because the means of propulsion was electric. And most of these electric utilities were run by criminals, gangsters. When I say gangsters, I mean Al Capone-style gangsters with Tommy guns, such as in Minneapolis.